Hello, everybody, and welcome to Called Up the Prospects podcast. I am Chris Peters of FloHockey, joined as always by Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects. Cam, how the heck are you today?
Doing well, buddy. Doing well. Busy season, of course, as always. But yeah, looking forward to the chat here.
There are a lot of things to get to today, including we're going to talk about some of the work that you've been up to in the last little while in Cam Consensus Poll. We're going to talk about that, some of the results. Always fascinating to see what the industry is saying about this year's class. We're also going to talk a little bit about college hockey and the possible or maybe not possible expansion of college hockey. And I think that's actually worth talking about for a number of reasons
Mhm.
because the landscape of hockey throughout this country, in the United States and in Canada, is shifting dramatically. So it's worth talking about the future as we see it. So we'll talk about that. We'll also get to our usual topics of conversation, including our Beyond Belief segment, and you have to pick one, or we'll get a little bit of everything in there. But we're going to focus a lot on the 2026 NHL draft. We're getting to that phase of the season here where teams have kind of submitted their halfway lists. They've gone through some of the ups and downs of the season already, and they're still not eliminating players off of their list, but they are getting down to the players that they think they're going to need to focus on more in this part of the season. And with that, Cam, you do the Cam's consensus ranking on Elite Prospects. It came out earlier this week, which I think gives us a great opportunity to talk about what came out of that, some of the changes from early lists, and how this kind of class is starting to shape up a little bit. So, Cam, we're gonna we're gonna start it off, or before we start it off, I do want to mention too. We say it every week, but it gets truer every week. Hockey hits harder on Flow, folks, and you need to get that annual subscription today. It is a great time. You're going to see a ton of the prospects that we're going to talk about on this show, but also, Ivar Stenberg even was on Flow Hockey last week. So make sure you are getting that annual subscription. It is great value. The postseason is on the way. We've got some big events like the AHL All-Star Classic, and we're going to be doing a ton more with other things coming up in our other leagues like the OHL, QMJHL, USHL, ECHL, SPHL, CJHL. The list goes on and on. We got a lot of HLs, and you can watch it all on Flow. So before we go any further, let's talk 2026 NHL Draft, like I kind of teased and then didn't tease, and now we're back doing it. So Cam, my friend, Cam's consensus. Tell us a little bit about it. Ivar Stenberg comes in at number one. We're going to throw up the rankings on the screen as we talk about it. But Cam, talk to me about Ivar Stenberg at number one.
Yeah, so just a little kind of general talk on the process here. This is such a fun project for me. Not only do I get to pick the brains of 10 really bright people working for NHL teams, but like the back and forth, and they're all very generous with their time and their information. And I have people asking like, "Oh, okay, did this team tell you this? Like, it was this part?" It's like obviously this is completely anonymous, even from the participants in the poll themselves. Like they don't know who else is in the poll for obvious reasons. So really grateful that they could do that, and it's super illuminating for me to just have these discussions with them too. And I get to pick their brain, they get to pick my brain. Wasn't a shock that Ivar ended up jumping up to number one. Just from the, we've been talking about it for weeks here too, and be kind of testing the waters with some teams and checking in. But I will say, razor thin margin, razor thin.
Mm.
So Ivar got 6 of a possible 10 first place votes. Gavin got 4. One team had Ivar at number 3. One team had Gavin at number 4. So it was like, I think there was only 3 voting points separating the two, and then a significant gap. I should have had my numbers in front of me here, dropping down to Keaton Verhoff at number 3. I think it was like a 40-point gap between those 2 and 3.
Interesting.
So it really is a 2-horse race at the top there. But, just through those conversations, some teams still feel that the offensive upside of Gavin McKenna is superior, and that they're still anchoring to what he did in the CHL, 2 years before this. He still put up 14 points in 7 games at the World Juniors, right? The goal of hockey is to get points on the board and score goals, and that kid knows how to generate offense. And so there are still a number of teams, as we think, 40% of the teams I pulled here still view him as the top prospect. But for the ones who did vote Stenberg at that spot, is they felt that it's just a little more translatable in all situations. He's not overly reliant on the power play. He has a little more jam to his game. He has a little more effort on the back check and away from the puck. And, let's be honest, a vast majority of your time on the ice is spent away from the puck. So it'll be really, truly interesting to see how these two do down the back half of the season, because, McKenna, whether he's hearing the footsteps or he's, seeing the reports that maybe he's not number one, like he's been playing pretty darn well at Penn State since World Juniors, right? I think he had one pointless game and then he's been cooking ever since. And they got the big outdoor game coming up this weekend, which should be really exciting against Michigan State. I'm sure he's going to want to look to get a little revenge after that weekend set back in November where he didn't have a very good showing and in front of a ton of executives and scouts. So that should be a fun weekend. But Ivar, he's playing right now. I'm waiting for him to get a goal because he just keeps clicking along too. Goal here, 2-point night here. Like he's just rolling in the SHL. So it's a 2-horse race, but it is noteworthy that Stenberg is at the top of the pile right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stenberg, as you mentioned, is actually on FloHockey right now for our US subscribers that can watch on FloHockey, watch the SHL on FloHockey. So a lot of interesting things there. I wanted to kind of take a look. So we have Stenberg, we have McKenna at the top. You've got Verhoff at number 3. And then you've also got the following up with Verhoff, and we'll just run down the list real quick here. You've got Smits at 4, Chase Reed at 5, Tynan Lawrence at 6, Carson Karls at 7, Caleb Malhotra at 8, Oliver Savanto at 9, Vigo Bjork at 10, Oscar Hemming at 11, and 12, Ethan Belchetz. And even beyond that, which we didn't have room to put on there, Ryan Lynn at 13, Daxon Rudolph at 14, and Malte Gustafson at 15. So there are a lot of defensemen in that group there, Cam, a lot of defensemen. And then we see the run on centers as well. And that's going to be the interesting thing. We've got 2 wingers at the top. You're going to see those premium positions, I feel like, and, really go. And I think it could be the defensemen. There could be that run on those defensemen there. But similar to what I've been hearing too, it is kind of like Verhoff, Reed, Smits, that combination. There are teams that really like Karls. There are teams that really like Rudolph. There are teams that like some of the other players as well. But man, that run on defenseman does feel like it could happen soon. And I wouldn't be shocked if, you're taking a segment of the league and there could be another segment where Chase Reed is one, or Keaton Verhoff is one, or probably less now of Tynan Lawrence at 1, but that was a discussion at a period of time. And I said this on another podcast. I'm going to say it here. How good is the number 1 pick? Like like, do we have a number 1? Like when you think number 1 pick, you think about franchise changer. Do we have that? Do you feel like we have a franchise changer in this mix? Even if it's not one of the guys that are the top 2, and just in terms of overall impact.
I think, it's easy, especially with some of the runs we've had for first overall picks, that to be like, hey, we're picking one, we're getting a Macklin Celebrini. We're going to get a kid who's going to be 19 and on pace for 120 points, right? We're going to get Connor Bedard, who's, just an all-star already. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get a Slavkovsky. Sometimes you get a Lafreniere. Sometimes you get a Jack Hughes, which I think maybe, is a franchise player, but maybe not to that same level, more offensive than a two-way guy too. But I don't know if there's going to be anyone here who really changes the complexion of a franchise long-term. Maybe there is a little bit down the board too. Maybe a kid like Ethan Belchetz just becomes like an absolute madman and uses his size to become that unicorn. Maybe it is McKenna. Maybe McKenna, ends up putting up 131 year, a la Nikita Kucherov or something like that, and plays just a pure offensive game. But I think teams know that this is looking like it's going to be more of an average first overall pick, more of an average draft class in general. And like you said, there is that it's really unique to see 2 wingers at the top. And then I don't think we see another winger go in the top 10. I think those
Right.
2 are going to go 1, 2, or in the top 3, whatever. And then it's going to be nothing but C's and D's through the rest of the top 10. And I firmly believe that, a guy like Oscar Hemming has kind of come up, jumped up boards here. He wasn't rated, and all of a sudden he's number 11 on this list. Belchez, I mentioned before, he's hanging around there too. But I don't know if any of them sneak into the top 10. I think that we'll see the teams be like, hey, okay, Smits is gone, Reed is gone, Verhoff's gone. Well, we better take Carlson,
Yeah.
Lawrence is gone. Malhotra's gone. Well, shoot, we better get Savanto, or we better grab Vigo Bjork. We better get ourselves a center here. And teams just really can't help themselves. So I do think that it's going to be those two wingers, and then we're going to see the run on the C and the D, and then it's going to be up for grabs, right? Are we going to see guys like Malte Gustafsson, Daxon Rudolph, Ryan Lynn? Are they going to climb just because they're Ds? And because after those centers I just mentioned, there's not too many centers left that you feel pretty good about even taking, I don't know, top 20?
Yeah.
Am I forgetting anybody? Yeah.
No, I mean, like, I think that I think it's going to be interesting, and like the way that I kind of put it is like if you had the choice between Stenberg and McKenna versus the field in terms
Mm,
of if you were just talking about those two players versus the field, who is the most likely to be the best player in a lot of years? And this was true. Like I think if you look back to the Lafreniere year where it was him versus the field, I think a lot of people would have taken him. But that there were plenty of alarm bells going off at the time. It's like I don't know, and also there's like the COVID year and all that other stuff, like weird
yeah.
stuff happening. But like I think the hype when you think about pre-draft hype, the Lafreniere pre-draft hype was extremely loud. The Shane
Back-to-back
Wright
CHL Player of
draft
the
hype
Year.
was extremely loud. How many
Yeah.
51 jerseys in the tricolor were we seeing in
Right.
in Montreal? Like
Mm-hmm.
you know, so the hype thing, like McKenna still has that name recognition and that hype
Mm-hmm.
train, but similar to the Shane Wright year, internally, that hype train has left the station. It is no longer, or it's been retired. Is
I was
probably
gonna
the
say
more.
locked in the station.
Whereas there's more of this question, and we got to question and question and question and question. Um, but man, it is fascinating to see. But I think like to that point, like I think you're going to take the field, or I would. I don't know if you. How would you feel? Would you got Stenberg or McKenna versus the field? Where is the best player coming from? Obviously, I mean, it's not a fair comparison because the field is pretty big,
Yeah.
like percentages wise. But if
Yeah.
you had to choose between the two,
Oh gosh. If I had to choose between the two, there's a reason that those two guys are number one, two on my board because I feel like
yes,
they're going to be the best players, right? So it's like if I feel that way and I put them there, then I should say I take Stenberg and McKenna against the field. But you're right, like just on math alone, the 190 guys picked after him, the 210 guys picked after him, whatever, there's a pretty good chance there might be a superstar in there, right? Like there could be
right,
very well be. But I'll take the two. I'll take the two mostly because there's not a dynamic offensive player outside of that
right,
group. I don't think like a truly dynamic offensive player sitting there. Like the defensemen are good. They're good defensemen. I think a couple of them have first pairing upside. They all have like a little bit of a deficiency here and there. Verhoff's skating. Smits, I don't think has elite offensive tools. Chase Reed is, maybe a little suspect defensively. He's working on it right now. He might have the best potential overall. Carl's, I think, too, offensively isn't going to be a giant. And then the centers too. Like I don't see anyone who's going to be a rock star. I don't even see a guy that I'd be like comfortably be like that's a point a game guy. I'll
right.
bet my mortgage on it. I don't see any of those guys there. So if we're looking at somebody who could put up 100 plus points, it's Gavin McKenna. If we're looking at somebody like that's an all-star NHL winger who can put up a PPG and play in all situations for you, that's Evar. And I don't know about anybody else in the field that can really contend with that. So I'll take those two.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're thinking about what when we look at that is almost like okay, he hasn't popped. Whoever it is hasn't popped yet,
Mm-hmm.
and developmentally there might be some pop that's coming, like where it's just like, hey, this
For
guy
sure.
has risen to the level. And when you're drafting players, it's all about playing the percentages and the probabilities and
Mm-hmm.
everything else and trying to mitigate risk and everything. And I think, the exciting guys are Stenberg and McKenna. They're absolutely the most exciting players to take. And I think that they're the players that it's easy to sell to a fan base because the highlight reels are going to look pretty nice, and there's
Gonna pop.
also that that's a factor, and as you talk to more people, you're like, hey, this it when you get the first overall pick does matter. Like if you get it in the McKenna year, if you get it in the Bedard year, if you get it in the Celebrini year, those are big franchise changing moments that help you sell tickets. But the first overall pick, regardless of who it is going to become an instant face for your team.
Yeah.
or a guy that is going to be the most recognizable star on your team. So there's a lot of business stuff there. But I want to get a little bit more into the nitty gritty of the list though, because we spent a lot of time on the top. But I want to ask
Mhm.
you, what was when as you're going through your process here, what was the biggest surprise to you that you saw?
You know, I think it's Vigo at number 10. And it's interesting because when I did the preseason board, and that was only with 8 teams, so I was happy to add a couple more here. Um, he was number 10. He was number 10 on the
Mm,
preseason list. And somehow him being number 10 on the midseason list, and I wrote this in the article too, feels like a major win for Vigo. Like
mm,
despite, playing well in the SHL, getting bumped down to the J20 every now and again too, and tearing it up, and then back to like he's centering the top line for your garden right now. Right?
yeah.
He's 17 years old and he's in the SHL centering the top line. Like I just tweeted it, the kid's a coach's dream. He had the Monster World Juniors. I personally thought he was Sweden's best player at the juniors there. I gave him that vote on my tournament all-star board. But even still, we came into the season being like, he's a little small and the feet aren't electric. Neither of those two things have changed. And NHL teams take that into huge consideration. I had one executive tell me, and like in that report too, like I got loads of quotes. Some didn't make the article, but one guy fully said to me, he's just like, ask Minnesota how they felt trying to trade Marco Rossi. Like, how'd that go? Is that at the end of the day, nobody wants a small center. And so, needless to say, Vigo might have been a little bit lower down their board. But, recognize too that this is still a first round prospect. This is still a top half of the first round prospect. But if you're going to inch up there and you're going to take them top 10, so that I think is surprising. But I also think it's part of that, just the how close we were, the recency bias of the World Juniors. I think as we get later into
Yeah.
the year, playoff hockey starts rolling, teams are reminded of like, oh, this is big boy hockey when you want to win. I think we're going to see Vigo, even if he has a great finish, even if he goes and we see him in Bratislava at the U18s and he rips it up there as he should. I think we're going to see him lower on that final list before the draft even
You're probably right. I mean, it all depends on it all depends on how the order shakes out, right? And who's there at the right if
yeah.
they're what kind of team is there at the right time. And but I agree with you. I think it is a major win because
Mm.
Vigo, anytime an early season list, even for the NHL teams that do it, it's largely based on limited information. Not everybody is
A
scouting those
watch list.
guys the right way. Right. Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
hey, it's okay. In Vigo's case, it was he's the probably the greatest Swedish junior player ever, in terms of his
Right.
production. He's had the most points ever by a player, especially at his age, not just his age, but any player. And then you go through and you're like, okay, well, he's got to prove it against the pros, and then he's starting to get those minutes. So he's been proving it time and time again, which I think helps his case, as we've talked about on this show before. But like the other, like one of the real interesting ones, and this is across the board, the Oscar Hemming thing. He didn't play for half a
Mm-hmm.
season. And he is
Mm.
very like within your range is very similar to what I've been hearing is like this is a guy that's going to go in the top 15. He's got a great shot to be, in that mix. I think that, but he hadn't played. And so now I think that also speaks a little bit to the class not raising to the level of how it went. So based on which kind of brings me to the next thing. Who are the biggest risers for you? Who are the guys that took the biggest jump from the first time you did this to the next time you did it?
Yeah, so I mean, several guys that weren't rated right in the top. I think we did top 16 plus honorable mentions if I recall for that first board. So there we're slowly getting bigger. Lots of teams gave me their full first round this year too, but some didn't. Some only gave me 20, so I just went to 20 for this particular exercise. But Albert Smits not rated all the way up to
Yep.
fourth. I think that's clearly our biggest riser. Stenberg was 7 in that preseason ranking. He started the year out at number
Interesting, yeah.
7, so jumping up to number 1. It's only a 6-step jump, but I mean it's pretty big steps. Caleb Malhotra, another one who wasn't rated by anybody, wasn't on a single list. Even honorable mentions, guys who gave me more. He jumped up to 8th, and then Hemming again not rated up to 11th. So Hemming's a really interesting one because, like you said, just the whole battle there with the Finnish Ice Hockey Federation and where's he going to play.
Mm,
But he played Helinka. He had a few games. He got shot out of a cannon, which was really interesting when he jumped into the NCAA after not playing for like half a season and looked so good. And then you compare that to what Tynan Lawrence has struggled, right, to find his feet. He's younger. He's actually Hemming's pretty young for this draft class too, if I recall. But
yeah.
the discrepancy between those two, but also I think the uniqueness of Hemming. And again, I talked to a scout about this. We had a long conversation. He's like, "Where's the guys who hit? Where are the guys that you look at and be like, that's someone I want in the trenches in when you're deep in a playoff series and they're gonna wear those big defensemen down on the forecheck." And Oscar Hemming is a kid who has legitimate power forward upside. He has speed, he has tenacity, he's not afraid to lay the body, and he's showing that against men basically at the NCAA level.
Yep.
And I think that that's really endeared teams to him quickly. But at the same time, it's like checked out a game of his a little more recently, and it was like this doesn't look like a top 10 pick to me. So we got to find out who the real Oscar Hemming is here, and we're going to hopefully find that out in the back half of the season.
Yeah, I feel like we can say that about so many guys in this class. What really is he? Like, what is he?
Mm-hmm.
And before
Mm-hmm.
we move on from the risers, I think the guy that is starting to become a consensus and now a real threat to Tynan Lawrence as the number one center off the board is Caleb
Yeah.
Malhotra. And Caleb
Yeah.
Malhotra, I mean, you look at the statistical leaderboard in in the OHL, and Caleb Malhotra suddenly right up close to the top there. 61
Yeah.
points so far for the Brantford Bulldogs, 23 goals. That's in 45 games. He's on pace for 91 points this season. He has, points in his last three, goals in his last two. He is a central figure for one of the best teams in all of junior hockey in terms of a pure talent standpoint. And yeah, he's in a great situation, and that's going to lead to points. But you also have to think he came from the BCHL last season.
Yeah.
Not coming in with that year of OHL experience. The jump was pretty big. It took him a little bit to get going, and now he's shot out of a cannon. He's the leading scorer on one of the best teams in junior hockey. He's ahead now. He has more games than Merrick Vanacker and Jake O'Brien, but
JOB. Mhm.
still, this is a player that is propelling himself to a certain degree. And he's got a lot of those tools. Now, the question that I have, and Matt, and I don't know if this came up in your conversations and in some of your quotes, and then just your own personal observations, is he's having a great season. He's pointing up a lot. Is he going to be a major point producer at the NHL level? Does he have that top end scoring ability that we're going to see as a player? Because I mean, like, he has a lot of other things. Like, I think he's super smart. I think that he's got
Yeah.
a great compete level and good work ethic. I think he's getting stronger, which is going to be, imagine him after some time at the University of Michigan and just going further, or sorry, Boston University. Sorry, guys. Boston University going through, their strength training program and getting stronger. Like, that is a really, really intriguing talent. But again, is the top end so great, or are we just looking at the fact that he's, a point producing center in junior right now?
And I asked myself this question as well. And when you said what's the biggest surprise, one of the bigger surprises for me too was that he wasn't the top center on this list, because he certainly was on a
I
few
was surprised
boards,
by that too. I was surprised by that
right?
too.
And then just anecdotally talking to teams, talking to guys, is that Tynan Lawrence stock is dipping and Caleb Maholtra's stock is ripping to the moon. Um, Does he remind you at all like of Nico Heischer a little bit? Remember Heischer had that monster back half to his season and really propelled himself up the draft boards, but nobody looked at him and was like, this is going to be a point a game guy or a 90-point guy. This is going to be like a two-way guy. He's going to be a leader. Caleb wore the C at the top prospects game. Like he's got good two-way acumen. I think he could be a defense, but I didn't expect Hischer to put up 80, 85 points a couple times, right? And so I don't think I
Right.
expect Caleb Maholter to do that either. I think he's more like a 70-point guy in the NHL that can play all situations for you,
Mhm.
maybe wear a letter for you down the line. So I got a little touch of that going there. What I've really liked about his game is the evolution of how he's using his speed and his pace. I thought he was really generating a lot in junior ways, slowing things down, waiting for the defense to get, lose their gap a little bit and open up lanes for him to create off of. Now we're starting to see him use his speed and kind of push defenders back, and that is going to be more translatable. So that gives me hope that maybe he can translate to the NHL. But again, like I mentioned it before, outside of those top two, I don't look at anybody here and be like, that's a PPG player. That's a guy that I'm willing to bet is going to be someone who puts up 80, 85 on a regular basis. And that includes
Yeah.
Malhotra.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have a feeling that teams in that, 7 to 12 range are gonna be keying in on a player like him, and they're going to think about things like the NHL bloodlines, the work ethic, the different things that he's shown this year, and say, all right, well,
Mhm.
he may not have all the tools, but he's going to be a pro. Like I think that that's the thing that when I
Oh, yeah.
watch Caleb Malhotra, I do see a pro player. I see a guy that's
Yeah.
going to find a way to make an impact at the NHL level. But yeah, but it's like when you're picking in that range, though, you do want that guy that's going to potentially be that pointed up player. So he's interesting.
Well, I mean, even like you're saying 7 9, like, he might be gone. He might be gone by then. Like, if
You're
would
right.
it
He
shock
could
you
be.
if he went 3? It wouldn't shock me at all if he went 3, 3, 4, 5. Like, I think that's the way his stock is trending. And again, you know, some teams view him as the top center on their board. But also, you mentioned the bloodlines. Like, was there ever a more of a pros pro than Manny Malhotra? Like, that guy was a consummate professional, and you just
Yeah.
saw it when he won 99% of his faceoffs and was just a menace, like the league's best third line center for years and years. And now, you know, he's his coaching chops are quickly building. Teams are recognizing him. He won't be in the AHL for too long. He'll be a head coach in the NHL very soon, I think, too. So you're right that teams weigh in on that too, right? This kid's been around someone who knows what it's like to be a professional for a long time, and he's taught him those habits. Yeah, and that will play it. I think he's going early. I think he's going very, very early. Whether a team regrets it or not, they're going, like you said, they're going to get a player. He's going to do a lot of things for you, just maybe not jack up a lot of points.
Right. Right. So that's he's an interesting one for sure, and one to watch, and to see him continue this rise. And I agree with you. I think there's a real potential for him to leapfrog Tynan Lawrence now, as that consensus number one center, just with what he's done so far in Brantford. And huge credit to him for the transition that he's made there and the impact that he's made. And they're probably only going to have him for this year, so so that he's got
Yeah.
that the potential to make a significant impact on that organization in his 1 year with the team. So let's head to the other end of the spectrum, if you don't mind here, Cam. Who are the guys that
Mhm.
slipped? And it seems like they're fairly consistently slipping elsewhere as well.
Yeah, Tynan Lawrence, he was number 2. That was kind of the big hot take in that preseason board, was that he was number 2, and then you know
Hmm.
dips down to 6. And I honestly thought 6 was maybe even a little higher than I expected. I thought he might have been pushing because there were a couple of boards that had him closer to 10. Ryan Lynn started the year at number 4. Now he's at
Yeah.
13, and that's putting up the top numbers among all CHL draft eligible Ds before he went down with injury there a couple weeks ago. So it's like hard to really knock him for his game. Yeah, he kind of pulled off the defensive side a little bit to explore that offensive potential, but I think Lynn's been having a pretty solid season. So that's a dip that's just I think predicated basically on he's 5'11", and do we see him as a top power play defenseman? And if we don't, then
Right.
13 to 15, 12 to 15 range, whatever, that fits more in line. If we think he's a PP1 guy who also has this great defensive acumen, well, yeah, now it makes sense to have him in the top 5. And then Belchet's too, 5th all the way to
Yep.
12th. Um,
Yep.
and that again, that I had one quote on him, just like basically that. I pull it up because I thought it was interesting. He's at his best when he's playing angry. He's been too
Yeah.
content playing a skill game too often. That he's just kind of relying on his hands and his skill, and he's not playing angry, and that's when he's at his best. So I thought that was telling.
It is telling. It is telling. It sounds like he might be a little bit banged up now too. I talked to a couple of guys that were supposed to be going to see him. They're hoping that he's going to be in the
Mm,
lineup. This weekend. But yeah, I mean, and that's been my take the whole time with him too, is that gosh, part of what makes him the guy that NHL teams want is the nasty,
yeah,
physical, hard to play against. He's a well-schooled player. Like, he knows what he's doing. I
yeah,
think there have been some questions about, overall instincts, and at times where he's just kind of into that skill development kind of, patterns and routines and other things that maybe there's less free-flowing nature to his game. Um,
hmm
but I do think that nastiness, like, and that's something he's going to have to. The reason that I believe that he could potentially be one of those guys that just explodes beyond where he's been right now is because get that nastiness back into your game, and all of a sudden your value only increases, and we've seen it from him before.
Well,
It's
that's the
not like it's
thing.
missing. It's not,
Yeah. Well, it
like
is
it's not
missing
like it's something he
in
can't
action.
do. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I agree with
And
you because like you see some of these guys where it's like he's never been like that. He's never been feisty. He's never been pugnacious. It's like that's just not in him. There's just some people like it's quite literally some
yeah.
players don't have that in them. Some people don't have that in them, right? Lots of people. But if you do have it and then you start to move away from it, it's still in there. It's still in there
Yeah.
and you just got to bring it out, right? Like, yeah. It's got to be a dick sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, no question, and yeah, yeah, 100%, and that it goes a long way. It goes a long way, and I think that's why, we talked about seeing Hemming and seeing other guys. Like, he's a guy that's not he's engaging physically at the collegiate level. Is he gonna be as effective there right now? No, but he's at least putting forth the effort, and, at 6'4" and with his scoring ability, you're like, "Okay, well, there's something there." So, I think we'll like, to see, like, a Hemming over Belchetz at this point is in like, but it doesn't surprise me, but it's just like, if you would have told me that at the beginning of the season, I would have had a hard time believing it.
Yeah.
But you look at that, and then um the Tynan Lawrence. So I will have to imagine that the Bean Pot is going to have, I don't know how many NHL scouts. There are always a ton there, but I
Yeah.
think you're going to see more GMs. You're going to see, and they are all going to be watching Tynan Lawrence, because
Yep.
I think there is a general belief that this player, he's a player. There is some, but it hasn't necessarily clicked all the way. He does have his first collegiate goal now, so it hasn't
Mhm.
clicked all the way for him. And maybe that would have been a lot to ask, but you go now into the Bean Pot, and that is
Love the bean
a
pot.
lot of attention, a lot of eyes. If you can rise on that stage, and we've seen him rise in big games before, that could be a great statement game for him. You don't draft a guy based on one game or two games or whatever, but it's an opportunity for him in front of a lot of eyes, because I think there are going to be a ton of people at that Bean Pot. And let's see if he can, because now he's got lots of competition, and you've got all those defensemen now too that a lot of teams are
Mhm.
really intrigued by and feel have great potential. But man, yeah, it's always fascinating to see. It's great to get that outside perspective. It's great to get the industry's perspective. Any other, minor takeaways or anything else from the exercise that stood out to you?
I liked that Oliver Savanto cracked the top 10 too.
Mm,
Number 9 there too.
mhm.
Is there's so
Yep,
many really young players. Like he is 2 weeks shy of being eligible for next year's class, right?
yep,
27. And that kid's a horse. And teams like this player. So again, I had one quote here from a scout. His compete level is special. He drags his team into the fight and is built for playoff hockey. He can be matched up against the best line. He's a PK specialist, great around the net. There's some Jordan Stahl to his game. And so you with that example there, I was like, yes, there is, right? Like Jordan Stahl went 2
yep.
his year, but he didn't go 2 because he was going to rack up a ton of points. Right. And so Savanto in the top 10, I really like that. I have him, right around that for my board too. I think he's gonna be a player. I think he's gonna be a heavy playoff performer that teams are going to hate matching up against. But yeah, maybe he's putting up 50 points a season, and that's just fine.
Right. He's going to be an interesting player to watch for whoever drafts him, how they handle him for next season,
Mm-hmm.
because he does, he is playing in Finland, but I don't believe he
Leaving.
has a pro contract over there. And as a result, that, similar to what we saw with Consta Hellenius, potentially moving him into the AHL right away, or different things, or having him start in the AHL and then doing what, like, Carolina did with Ivan Rabkin, and
Radkin.
sending him to junior after getting that taste of pro hockey. So, but
Mm-hmm.
Savant, man, what a tough customer that young man is, and as you mentioned, September 3rd birthday. So we're talking about a
Yeah.
guy that's only barely eligible for this draft at 6'3", 209. Yeah, thanks for coming out. Yeah, I think that I
Yeah.
think he's a guy that his stock only continues to rise. All right, let's pause on the draft talk. We'll get back to it in our other segment, but I wanted to talk about a story that kind of came out this week out of nowhere. And it was our pals over at the Game Notes podcast. Mike Grinelli had a report that Oklahoma State was considering adding Division One hockey to the fold, and it was very preliminary. And if you have to read in the language and all those other things, in the end, is it imminent? No, not and is it likely going to happen? Also probably no. So, but it does put this conversation back into the forefront, and I think it's important to have it again, because let's think about what's happening across the hockey landscape, Cam. You've got, the CHL eligibility that increases the player pool that you're able to pull from. You're going to
Mhm.
see expansion across. I would assume you're going to see expansion in the CHL leagues and potentially the USHL as well, and the American junior hockey landscape. So there's a lot of different pies to kind of pull from of players that you could potentially have. Right now, we're at what, 63, 62 NCAA Division One men's hockey teams. We're seeing them pull players out of the ECHL and SPHL, like, so they're all coming from all over, and that creates opportunity to have, for teams to potentially get into college hockey and do it.
Mhm.
But there are some big problems, Cam. There are some really big problems. And the big problems are football and basketball. Cam, now I know you're Canadian. And I know that you don't
Uh-huh.
have the NCAA system up there, but I
Mm-mm.
assume that you guys understand the the chokehold that football has over most of the North American sports world. I assume. I just correct me if I'm wrong.
Good assumption. Yeah, safe assumption. Yeah.
So, Oklahoma State is a great example of, this is a team that they have a club team or an ACHA team that is very well
Yep.
funded. They have awesome uniforms. They are going to play Penn State's club team because they have their
The
varsity team,
outdoor.
and actually Penn State started as an ACHA team,
Yep.
and was one of the most successful ACHA programs for years and years before they went up. But they're going over there. They're going to play at Beaver Stadium in one of the several games that'll go on aside from the men's game between Penn State and Michigan State. The Gavin McKenna Revenge Tour, as it's also being called. Um, but the other problem with this is that because all of these schools, so we talked about college hockey expansion has been on the forefront for a while. Illinois had it.
Mm.
Like they were close before COVID, really close before COVID. They are not getting it and will not get it. Just so everybody,
Mm.
people are like, oh, isn't it Illinois still think? Nope, that's done. Ship has
Mm.
sailed. Um,
Mm.
Tennessee State is another school that is trying. That's a school that doesn't have, you know, FCS, or football, the college football playoff, kind of thing, football wise. So you've got all these schools are trying. And Cam, I mean, like, where if you were to pick, what are the schools you would want to see at it, just to because let's talk about that. Who are where if you were, especially as like somebody that has to go to games, where would you want to see next?
Well, I think that's pretty safe for me, especially being on the West Coast. And so I poked around on this too when Grinelli put that out there. And I kind of got the same pushback too, that it was just more like that the ACHA team, the ACHA team, the club team there was just getting like deeper pockets, maybe. Um, but like, let's get some more teams on the West, right? We got ASU, Arizona State came out. How about a little UNLV, right? A little down in Vegas there, maybe a little UCLA. Hey, why don't we toss a little more on the West Coast here? All of a sudden, my trips are getting a little sunnier, getting the scouting missions
Yeah,
on the west side of town here. Or maybe we just go on the other side. How about Florida? How about the Gators? But I had a conversation with somebody recently about this too, about like kids that because of all the trickle down of the CHL being eligible in NCAA, I would just change the landscape for everybody. Like when I was growing up, and even like not even that long ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, you could be a junior B player here. Like a junior B player in BC, it's like that's not high level hockey. They're good hockey players, but it's not. You're not going pro. If you were a good junior B player, you could go play Division III in the States. That's not really
yep,
an option for those guys anymore. It's really going to be challenging to do that. Now you've got to be a junior A player. Now you'd be playing the BCHL or the AJHL to go play Div 3. But if it was me or if it was my kid and he's looking at that, I'd be like, why not go to Florida and go play for their club
yeah,
team and have a bunch of people
yes,
there? You get to go to a big school. They get fans. Like some of these big programs,
yeah,
they get fans out to them. Oklahoma State, they
oh
get
yeah,
fans out. They get to do these cool things. They get to play these outdoor games rather than playing Div 3 at like a community rink with four guys' girlfriends in the stands, and that's it. Right? Like that doesn't sound like a good time to me. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you're not getting a pro contract at the end of this. Let's go have a good time and get a degree from a big school and get all the networking that comes up with that and all the opportunities too. So yeah, I like the Atcha stuff too. But if we're going Div 1, yeah, let's get some more on the west side here.
Yeah, for sure. And you bring up some great points there too, is like, what's wrong with playing ACHA hockey? What's wrong with
Nothing.
going to these major universities where you get that whatever college experience you've seen on TV and other things like that, and it's okay to be there. Now, the thing is, so what is the motivation for teams that want to go Division 1? Hockey is a revenue generating sport for a lot of the bigger schools. It is a place where they are finishing in the black as opposed to in the red, like many of the other programs that they have. Um, so it's a big deal at those. And so I understand it from that perspective. From a donor perspective, you're not exactly you're not exactly making money off of it. You're just giving money away. So it's not
Yeah.
a really a business proposition. It's more of a goodwill thing. And maybe you want your name on a building, and that is enough for you to do it. I think when you go back to when Terry Pagula gave all the money to Penn State, it was not just because he wanted a hockey team there. It was because he had a long-standing relationship with Joe Batista, who was their longtime club coach, who was a
Mhm.
legend in the ACHA. But Joe always pushed, I think that this university should have a Division 1 hockey team. They have a fan base, they have all these, and Terry saw that vision. He's like, "Yes, I agree." And it was a hundred
Here's my
and two
checkbook.
million dollar investment, I think, or not investment, gift. It started as an
Mhm.
$88 million gift, and I think because of cost of construction, it was $102 million. The cost has only gone up since then. One of the reasons that I was super skeptical about the report that had come out and just like what was provided was artist renderings of a $200 million facility. Mullet Arena, which was just built, is not a $200 million facility. So you're
Mhm.
kind of, it sounds like monopoly money at that point. It's not
Mhm.
like the cost of things is not necessarily that. Um, but that was like kind of one of the alarm bells. And the other thing that's an alarm bell, and brings me back to my initial point about the football thing and the chokehold that it
Mhm.
has. Many of these group Power Four schools, there used to be Power Five. Pac-12 isn't in the Power anymore, but so Power Four schools,
Yeah.
um, and that's Big 10, Big 12, SEC, and
CC.
ACC.
Yeah.
And so that's what you have as the Power Four. Oklahoma State is in the Big 12. They're a Power 5 or Power 4 school, and they're also a school that is currently rebuilding their football program. Longtime coach Mike Gundy was fired last year. They brought in a new coach. However many millions it was going to take to have a quality football team 5 years ago,
More
add
now.
many more millions to that now in the NIL era. And the reason,
Yeah.
like athletic directors, the thing that was College Hockey News reported, the athletic director did take a meeting with the potential donor, which is not a small thing. That is an actual, factual thing. So somebody, if somebody comes and says, "I'm going to give you $300 million," then you have to listen, right? Um,
Mhm.
but that's kind of where we're at. We're talking about these large lump sums of money. It's not easy to do. And I think a lot of these athletic departments are saying, "That's great. Thank you so much for that kind donation. Would you consider giving it to our football team? Would you
Yeah.
consider giving it to our men's basketball team?" And Cam, one other point. This is just a kind of like, there's revenue sharing now. And BC, I saw a report about Boston College and their revenue sharing. Men's hockey is historically their best program. It was something along the lines of 75% to the football program for revenue sharing, 15% to men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and 5% to everything else, including men's hockey,
Sheesh.
which is a
Sheesh.
multi-time national championship program where hockey
Yeah.
matters at that school. But when you see
Mhm.
the numbers in that way, it just crystallizes our dreams of those big schools having it. And
Not their
I
dreams.
there's a picture right behind me over here. I went to an ACHA school. I went to Iowa State. That's where I got my start. I worked for the team at the school. And I dreamed of Iowa State having men's hockey. But we just lost our entire football team to Penn State. So now we have to rebuild that thing, and that costs a lot of money. So I'm never going to see a hockey team at my school. But like that's the
A
that
club there
that's the
would be
reality.
great. The
Oh
club
yeah,
hockey is
it's
great
awesome.
there. Go to Ohio.
It's
I'd go to
awesome.
Ohio and play club, right?
Yeah, I'd go anywhere. I'd
Heck
go
yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
So Oklahoma, just yeah, Texas. Come on, sign me up.
Sure.
And that's what
Yeah.
yeah. Go play ACHA. Continue to be great ACHA programs. If you're at one of those schools, go check out a hockey game. They're pretty fun.
Mhm.
Some of them even sell beer. We couldn't at Iowa State. That was very sad.
Ooh.
But
Mm.
but yeah, Cam, pie in the sky. You've got $300 million. Where are you putting a Division I hockey team tomorrow?
UCLA.
I love it. I'd say
Yeah.
UCLA, USC, one of those two.
Yeah. Yeah. USC. Sure. I'm down with that too.
UCLA with the
Yeah.
color scheme though, that'd be sick.
I love the blue,
Absolutely
right?
sick. I'm
Right?
down.
Whew.
I love it.
Right? Get those bears. Yeah. Yeah. Let's do
So
it.
so
Well,
kids,
so should we go halvesies on it? Maybe we make the donation?
yeah, maybe yeah, I think yeah,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
split the cost.
We're generationally
And
wealthy, aren't we? Yeah.
yeah, of course. Of course.
Mhm.
We have money
Naturally.
to
Yeah.
burn. So just to put a pin in it, I think I would term it as a 0.05% chance of Oklahoma State ever having hockey. But no one would love to see it more than me. Any school of the Power 5 schools that wants to add hockey, we hope
Sign
it
me up.
happens. I just think it's never been less likely than it is now. So just throwing that out there.
Sorry, G.
All right, pal.
Yeah.
Let's get you back into the mix here. Let's talk a little bit more about this beyond belief here, and let's keep with the college theme because we talked a lot about Gavin. Last week he had, I believe, 6 points over the weekend or 5 points over the weekend, including his first collegiate hat trick. Things are going a lot better for him. So my question to you, sir, or my statement to you, and beyond belief, where you have to decide if it's believable or not. Gavin McKenna will break 50 this season. He will break 50 points this season. Now I think we talked about this at the beginning of the year and it seemed like, oh, no question. now we're
No.
down to the nitty-gritty of the season here. 50 points. Do you think Gavin can do it? And do I need to? I should have also given you the point total
I
he
got
is at
numbers in my
now.
brain. I think he's got
All right,
29 and
all right,
22, if memory serves. I work for a company
yeah.
that
So
does
he's
stats.
29 and 22.
Nailed it. There you go. Beautiful.
Nailed it.
I also would like to say that I don't think we said it was a slam dunk he would get 50. I know people were throwing like, is he going to get 70? Is he going to do what Eichel did? And we were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We were more like, if he does what James Haggins did last year, let's consider that a good season. What Haggins get like 38 or something, right?
37.
I hope I nailed that one
yeah.
too. Dang it. That would have been too good.
You might have been right.
Oh, okay, cool. I hope I am. Yeah, we'll get the stats. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that's beyond belief because there's a dozen games left on the schedule here through conference tournaments too. Maybe a Baker's dozen. That's a lot of points. It's doable. Could he put up 21 over 13 games? Yeah. 12, 13 games, he could do it, but I'm going to say that's going to be a tough hill to climb. He's got a couple of tough matchups coming down the pike here too. He has traditionally this season feasted on some lower level competition and has struggled to put up points at some of those top rated schools. And he's going to have a few of those matches. So yeah, I'm going to say it's beyond belief. We'll break 40.
Yeah. Throw an outdoor 40. Game in there.
Yeah.
Tough, I think 40 is. Yeah, 40 is very reasonable.
Right?
He did have
PPG
that 5-point weekend against Wisconsin last weekend that included an empty net goal, his first collegiate hat trick. He has right now, he has 10 points in his last 4 games, and that includes a 5-point effort at Notre Dame. So he would have to kind of just continue to do this every weekend. My thing is, I don't think that Penn State's going to go on a deep enough run where they're playing in the Frozen Four and in the national championship that gets you to the level of games that you would need. So I'm also going to go beyond belief, but I do think that it is that 40 point. If he's at 40, 42 points at the end of the season, I think that is a strong performance, especially given where he was at in the earlier stages of the year where he was kind of dipping up and down. So you throw that in there plus the 14 points that he had at the World Juniors, and you're like, okay, well, it's a pretty good season. So
mid 40s and mid 30 games, right? You put up 44 and 34 or something like that.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, there's no question the point production's still impressive.
Yeah, for sure. And I also just looked. James Haggins had 37 points last year. I won't be sleeping tonight. Yeah. Okay.
1 point off.
The first defenseman drafted this year will be from the CHL. And if you remember that scout list there, the top 2 were not from the CHL on that board.
Right. Right. But I am going to say it's believable because I do believe that Chase Reed is the guy that could unseat Verhoff and Smits and some of the, and don't count out Carson Karls as well.
I think so too. Yeah.
And I do think a guy that we're going to see rise up the list a little bit more. I do think Daxon Rudolph's going to rise up the list. I don't think he's going to rise to the level of being the first defenseman chosen, but I do think that he's going to rise up the list based on what we've been seeing. I mean, he is scoring a ton of goals right now. He is scoring at a super high clip. And isn't he Prince Albert's leading scorer? So
I believe so.
And they're currently number 1 in the CHL power rankings, I believe. So pretty decent. Pretty decent. But I do think that the likely guy is Chase Reed. I think there's a very strong chance because of that dynamic offensive capability that he has, the way that his game has progressed over the last year plus. And just kind of he seemed like he was almost this unknown kind of commodity last year, bursts onto the scene and then is just continuing to accelerate. Played such a big role for Team USA at the World Juniors, which I think was an eye opener. And it wasn't just that he played well, it was that he got better as the tournament went on, and he was more relied upon as the tournament went on. They really needed him, not just with the Cole Hudson injury. So I think that it's very believable. But I cede to you, sir. What do you say?
Yeah, I think it's believable too. And I, like you, is like, I don't think it's super likely. I do think it's going to be Verhoff at this point anyways. But like, don't sleep on Carson Karls. There are some teams that really like him a lot. And Daxon Rudolph was really interesting from the scout poll too, is that some teams were high and some teams are like, no, it's not even in the top 15.
He is a very polarizing guy this year, I've found.
And like, for like a non-polarizing player, do you know what I mean? Like he's a pretty, like, for me, I feel like I had the lay of the land with him after watching him for like 5 minutes. I'm like, smooth skater, good size, good stick, good gap, pretty good shot from the point. Looks like a nice second pair to me. Maybe he's a 3. And I don't really think that's changed. I don't think that assessment's changed too much throughout the year. Yeah, he's doing well on a really strong team, but he looks like someone who's going to chew up 20, 22 a night, be an anchor on your second pair, play a couple different special teams for you, gap up, smooth skater, make an outlet pass, boom, money in the bank. So like, you take that guy in, around 10 to 15, you're feeling pretty darn good about yourself. But yeah, there's some teams that are like, no, not buying it. I thought that was interesting.
He is absolutely polarizing. Currently 3rd among all defensemen in scoring in the WHL right now, with 54 points. And
decent.
Very interesting that we're seeing some historic production from defensemen. We've, Bryce Pickford in the league has 33 goals this year.
Insanity. Is he still leading the entire league? I think he might lead the dub in scoring.
Yes.
He was for a minute. Yeah.
Yes.
Crazy.
And it's just, it's really interesting. Like the WHL, in talking to scouts this year, they have not been super surprised with the, kind of the fact that there's some guys that are definitely showing it's a little easier to play in right now. Especially those older players. Some of those guys. And actually, Pickford did slip to 3rd overall in goal, or tied for 2nd in goals with Cameron Schmidt with 33.
What a plug.
Joby Baumhaler has 35 now as of this last weekend. So just, this is Cam, I'm just right here on Elite Prospects, just checking that out.
Naturally.
Sure I know what the heck's going on. Okay, my turn. The Power 4 conferences. One school, just one. We just need one. One of them will add men's hockey by 2030, which I believe was the date that was kind of floated for the Oklahoma State thing.
Hey, man, I'm a positive guy. I thrive on enthusiasm. Believable. Let's make it happen. Let's put that energy out there. We can will it into existence. Yeah, I'll say it. Why not?
Then I
have no reason to say that, but that's it. I'm just going to be
I'll be the pessimist. I'll be fine. I'll be the pessimist.
What?
Beyond belief. But what I love,
Right.
All it takes, though, Cam, to your point, all it takes is one generationally wealthy,
Mark
maybe
Cuban.
wants a name on a building, maybe
Come on down.
wants just loves hockey more than the trust fund for their children. That is what it will take. And so but I'm going to stick with Beyond Belief just for 2030. 2031, I mean, sure, maybe.
Oh, oh, there we go.
So,
There's
anyway,
a glimmer of hope. Okay.
yes.
Last one here. The NCAA will produce more first rounders than the OHL this year.
Man, that is a good one.
Right? Thought that was a good one.
Okay, so let's count here. So you've got McKenna, Verhoff, you've got Morozov,
All right.
you've
Lawrence.
you've got man, that's a lot. So that's already more. Could Valentini go in there? I don't think so,
That's
but
well, exactly
still
right. Valentini, maybe.
maybe.
Yeah.
I'll say believable. I think that's
Yeah.
believable. Just because I think that players are coming, and we're gonna have a large contingent of Europeans, so like it's more just. I don't think it'll be a lot more. Maybe it's one or two more at
Yeah.
most. Because I'm trying to think of who else but like some of the OHL guys that we expected to go in the first round. Oh man, this is
Yeah.
now I'm just like kind of counting it through my head, Cam, a little bit more because you're gonna have Reed, you're gonna have Malhotra, you're gonna have Belchets, you're gonna
Well,
have
that's
you know then you're starting to say, okay, well, where else is it? There are a lot of guys that are tweeners, like Robrecht has kind of fallen off. Uh, Pierce Bowie is not really. I don't think he's first round cup of tea
recommend
for a lot of
words.
teams. Oh
Right.
man, I'll say, but I'm going to say believable that the NCAA does do it this year. And it's not, is that an indictment on the OHL? No, I just think that the landscape
Yes.
has changed. Really, I mean, but what do you got? Where are you going with it? I want to hear what you got to say.
I'm like you. I think it's believable, and I should have looked this up beforehand. But has it ever happened? I'm guessing no. I'm
I couldn't
guessing not.
imagine that it
Right?
has. I mean, because typically think about we've seen more and more players accelerate. Because then you got Lawrence on top of that. Yeah, because you're bringing
Yeah,
players
it
in
said
mid
Lawrence. Yeah,
season.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like
Well,
so
it's
it's all of a sudden changes the dynamic. So and I think we'll see a few. We may see a few next year, maybe not as many. Um, but yeah, wow.
going NCAA.
Until you put that in the chat, in our little rundown here, I was like, gosh. And I'd been thinking about it all show, and I'm just like, I guess, yeah, could happen. Could
I
happen,
also
but we'll
wonder,
see.
like,
There are still guys like
what's
kind of popping. Ryder Callie's a name to watch for the late first
Ryder
round, and
Cali?
some
Yeah,
other,
good
there's
point.
a lot of other players that are starting to kind of emerge.
Yeah,
But boy, what a fascinating look that would be at that.
right.
All right.
Di Oreo. Yeah,
Yeah,
Alessandro.
Dior.
But
Yeah, there's a number. It's going to be really close. It's going to be really close, regardless of who has more in the end. But boy, that is a fascinating one, and
what's
what a commentary on the landscape as it is right now.
I have two questions for you. What's the record for
Yes.
most first rounders out of the NCAA in a single draft? We could probably look that up on a website. Maybe
Yeah, I'm
we'll
going to
have it for
look that
next
up
week.
now.
So I'm curious. Okay, I'm curious about that. And then you were saying maybe we're going to see less next year. Do you think fewer draft eligibles are going to be in the NCAA next year, or more?
I do think that we'll see. I think some of those players. There will be a couple, but I do think that we'll see
Yeah,
fewer this year than we saw um or next year than we saw this year,
next year.
just because I think that some of them are realizing how difficult that is. And this was always my
Yeah,
thing when I had the
yeah.
argument with college. This is going back years ago. I said, how many guys like even really make the NCAA as true freshmen, let alone younger than true
Mm-hmm.
freshmen, and make a
Mm-hmm.
sizable impact? And there are only so many Celebrinis, and like Eichel was basically a late birth date, but like you have
He was.
Celebrini
Yeah.
and some of those, there aren't that many of them out
Warinsky.
there. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
it's very, very
Werenski,
rare.
Hannafin. And
True
Hannafin was
17 year
like,
olds. Yeah.
yeah, they were big. They were, they had like the
Mhm.
Verhoff is big, like I don't is Landon DuPont going to make that decision next year? Is he going to go to college next year, or is he going to stay in junior? Like his point
You
total
know
went
that
down this year. you know?
Every recruiter in the nation is knocking on his door right now,
Oh,
though.
I'm sure they
They
are.
are. Everybody's trying to get Landon DuPont down there for next year. But you're right. It's a big question.
Yeah, I am sure they are. And yeah, I wish there was an easier way. I don't have the record for the NCAA draft picks, but it's got to be single digits.
Right?
Um,
Oh, yeah.
the draft rules have
I'm
gone
wondering
up
if
and
5
down
has
over
ever
the
happened.
years, but yeah, I would be
True.
shocked.
Yeah.
This year will probably
I'll
be
look it up.
up there. Although we did have that year a couple of years ago where everyone was at Michigan. Every draft eligible was at Michigan or going to Michigan when it was Owen
Going
Power,
to
Matty
Michigan.
Beniers, Kent
Yeah.
Johnson,
Yeah.
yeah,
That was
that whole
fun.
crew. So that might have been the record. I'll have to go maybe once we're answering our final segment question, I'll try and dig up the answer for us. But I also know a shorthand way to ask our old friend ChatGPT. So
Oh,
anyway,
don't trust that.
no, I don't. I like to do my own
Yeah.
research with
Yeah.
Google. But anyway, so let's go to you have to pick one. And this I feel like is something you put this in and I was like, "Oh, this is a good one." Would you rather win an NCAA championship or a Memorial Cup? And Cam,
This is tough.
I have a feel like let's see where this goes along geographic lines here, but you got to pick one: NCAA title or Memorial Cup.
I'm glad you let me go first because, you're looking at me being like, look at this syrup drinking hoser up here. He's he's going Mem Cup for sure. He's going Mem. Well, surprise. I'm going NCAA Natty. I'm going with the Natty because I think that would be I think that would be so much fun. I think it's chaos. I think the fans in the NCAA are the student sections. Like it's a blast. I think that when you're playing for your school. I don't know. I feel like it might mean a little more than playing for a team in the OHL or the West. And also, I also think that the Mem Cup is like, and I know it's sort of similar with the NCAA, but it's like you win your league title, you're like, we won the league. Like, these are the teams we play against. We did it. We won.
Mm-hmm.
Now we go to the Memorial Cup, and it's like this kind of weird format. And there's a host, and it's like, oh, now we got to play these random teams we never played before, never see. And I know when you go to the NCAA, Frozen Four, like you might play some teams you never saw that year either. But it's all kind of in your world. So I'm going with the Natty. I'm going with a national championship in the NCAA. You go CHL now.
I mean, for me, this is so you didn't take the jingoistic route. You didn't take the geographic lines route.
I'm a better
But
man than you here. Is that what you're saying?
so yeah, so I grew up a humongous. This may be a surprise to people. I grew up a humongous Notre Dame fan. So like when I was, I love Notre Dame football. I love Notre Dame hockey. I went to Notre Dame hockey
Rudy.
camp. Like I did the whole thing. And so my dream as a kid was always to play college hockey. I was never close to good enough to do that. And so that was always what I wanted. There was a local team. I had the University of Illinois, Chicago, UIC Flames, which is one of the pucks behind me that I got when I was still there. Famous alum from UIC, Rob Hudson, the son who is Lane and Coles and all their dad. He was one of their best players when I was a kid. And so there was that, but I think also you kind of see the atmosphere of winning a national championship for your school. We saw it at Western Michigan last year. I think there were some couches on fire in Kalamazoo last year. We saw and I think, winning the Memorial Cup too, you're getting the parade in town, you're getting this hero's welcome, you're getting all of that, and you're getting all the celebrations. And so, being a champion, regardless of where it comes from, is always meaningful. And I think that you have to, being a winner goes such a long way. And I mean, but like, you also think about like guys like Scott Niedermayer, who had won literally everything there was to win, including a Memorial Cup. And, you think about those guys and it'd be cool to be part of that history, but because nobody says that about the NCAA championship, do they? You never hear that about this guy won the NCAA, he won the Stanley Cup, he won Olympic gold, like all those different things.
It's true.
Yeah. So I was like,
so
I think if you're a Canadian kid, maybe you're going to say, well, I want to be part of that history. Here's the funny part, though, Cam. Now you can be both if you
Yeah,
want to be. There's a chance
right?
that you could be both.
That's
And
cool.
that never existed before, which is so fascinating to me in this landscape. So I'll say NCAA mainly because that went as a kid, that was a dream. That was an absolute dream of mine that I wanted to accomplish someday. And having been able to cover very many Frozen Fours over the years, it is one of my most enjoyable hockey experiences is covering that tournament every year, just because there are so few things like college hockey when it comes to the pageantry, the school spirit thing, the bands, the just everything. There's a lot to it, and it's
Hmm.
cool. But I like that you said it too, and you're just like, dude, hey, have you guys seen the parties that happen after these things?
Right?
Like, it's
They're having a good
unbelievable,
time. They're having a good
So
time. So here's the thing for Canadians too. Like growing up a Canadian kid, like obviously I wanted to win the Stanley Cup. When I was out in my driveway, I was going
for
backhand roof
sure.
to win Game 7. But my like really like if we took it down a level, it wasn't to win a Memorial Cup. My dream was to go World Juniors, to win a World Junior gold, right? So I think that
Okay.
probably resonates more with Canadian kids, or at least it did for my age group. I think. So yeah, I think that's interesting, and I wonder if American kids, World Juniors wasn't a big deal to them, especially like around our generation, where it was probably that natty, right? If you're not talking pro. So yeah. I
Right.
thought I thought that was an interesting one, anyways.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, it's always, yeah, it's always fascinating. I like the question too. And I think, man, just put me in a game. If you give me a chance to win a championship, if
Oof,
it's beer league, man, let's go.
cut
Let's
my
go. I
finger
want to
off so
raise
I can
that
go.
trophy.
Hell
I've
yeah,
won a couple D League, beer league championships in my day. I've won some
my
intramural.
man.
Actually, never won an intramural at Iowa State. One of the great failings. Made it to a
Oh,
championship game. Made it to a
oh,
championship game and just got the floor cleaned with us. And yeah, man, it's one of the
what?
great losses of my career. Was
I'm
not winning an intramural T-shirt at the university or at Iowa State University.
Man,
So yeah.
I have to plug
Well,
my own. I have several, and it felt great at the University of Victoria. And I'll never forget the greatest one was our hockey team. Shout out to the Wolfpack. We had to play 3 games in one night to win it because we were the lower seed. We had to go quarters, semis, finals in the same night.
oh, that's
And
awesome.
one of my best buddies, I got to tell you this, one of my best buddies was we were playing against him in the semis. They'd knocked us out the last 2 years, and they were the champs. He played on that team. There I am cutting across the goal mouth, little backhand slide the other way. I see the goalie just reaching at the goal line. I just threw my hands up. I didn't know if it went in. I'm going to sell it like I did. And the ref gave us the goal. Still to this day, he brings it up. He's like, that puck wasn't over the line. I was like, goals on the scoreboard, baby. We took the 2-1 win. We rode right to the championship. Still got the t-shirt. Yeah.
If he
He's
points,
fake it till you make it.
if
That's
he
right.
points, that's a goal. That's a goal.
That's a
That's
goal
awesome.
all day.
Man,
Yeah.
the glory days have been relived on Called Up the
Yeah.
Prospects podcast. Two guys that will not be called up to the NHL anytime soon. Mr. Cam
Maybe
Robinson
not.
and Chris Peters here. So, Cam, before we get out of here, what do we got coming up on Elite Prospects? Obviously, the Cam's Consensus is a big project. Go read that. But what else do we have coming along the way here from you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, plenty of stuff. We got all our stock watches, everything, updating. We dropped our rankings last week too, and then we're gonna start shifting. The Olympics are pretty close too, and so that's gonna be obviously not for our scouts so much. But we'll be watching a little Albert Smiths though, but just promotional wise and stuff too. That's all eyes on the Olympics too. So sadly, won't be going to that, but be gearing up for a couple more trips down the back half of the season here too. So we should have some fun stuff coming.
Yeah, lots to get to. And certainly, Cam, I think on this show, we should absolutely be talking about some Olympics on top of everything else we got going on because you're Canadian, I'm American. We're gonna fight. It's gonna be
Oh
awesome.
yeah,
I don't know if we'll fight, but we're definitely the
physically,
teams are
yeah,
the teams are gonna get going. So
yeah,
yeah, so the Olympics starts, the women's tournament starts next week. So make sure
right, the
you
fifth
guys
or
are tuning
something,
into
yeah.
that so that you know what we're talking about. And because we're going to be also
Mhm.
talking about the men's tournament and everything else coming along. For us over here on FloHockey, we got the AHL All-Star Classic coming up in a couple of weeks in Rockford, Illinois. Tons of NHL prospects, big time prospects in that event. You are going to want to check that out, the skills competition and the All-Star Challenge, two great events that showcase those prospects. Also, make sure you check out all the things that we've produced and have produced. We just got back and are still thawing out from the AHL outdoor game in Hastings, Minnesota. Lots of great content surrounding that. Huge thanks to our team for getting that together. It was a lot of fun to be a part of, and very cold to be a part of as well. The coldest professional hockey game ever played, at least on record. That we know of. So that was a lot of fun. Make sure you check out all that great content and subscribe to all of the great things we have on FloHockey. You'll be able to see a lot of the prospects like Caleb Malhotra and Ivar Stenberg, who we talked about today, on FloHockey. So do not miss that opportunity. Get that subscription today. Cam, man, it's almost, not quite. We're almost there. It's February. Gosh, does it feel like this is starting to fly? It's really starting to fly. It only gets faster. It only gets more chaotic. It only gets scarier and scarier for those of us that are doing these prospect evaluations, as we have to really put our money where our mouth is and make some real clear assessments of these players here. But lots to come, man. I'm excited to keep it rolling here. Any final thoughts for our great people before I sign off?
No, this was a fun one though. I enjoyed reliving my glory days.
Right? It was, yeah. I did not anticipate that we'd be able to go back. Your glory days, my defeat, my sadness that still exists 20 years after an intramural mishap. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Called Up the Prospects podcast. Huge thanks to Amanda for producing today's show. Thanks to Cam, and thanks to all of you for joining us. It's always great to have you. That is going to do it for this week's episode. My name is Chris Peters. For Cam Robinson, we'll see you next time.